So my name's George Hosier and we farm here at Wexcombe in the North Wessex Downs on the border of Wiltshire, Hampshire and Berkshire. We're a family partnership, my father and mother, myself and my wife, and we are a mixed beef and arable farm. The farm is predominantly calcareous soils, the chalks, but we have a real variety of soil types going from green sand on the edge of the Pewsey Vale up through a series of clays and chalks to this flinty clay cap over the chalk up on the top of the hill. So the farm is 625 hectares. The beef suckler herd in this field is a crossbreed Hereford cross. We mob them all together, all 218 of them at the moment. We calve in April and we aim to finish everything on farm in between 26 and 28 months, ideally. We introduced Herbal Leys into our farming system for two reasons. One, we've always had grass leys in our rotation, and I just felt that the Herbal Ley, with its diversity, its different architecture of the plants, different rooting systems, gave us more resilience in different weather and also gives better root structure. The different root structures gives more chance of improving soil structure, as well as giving different root sugars, root exudates, back into the soil to feed the microbes in the soil. So the more diversity you have above ground, the more diversity you have below ground, the more nutrient cycling, and effectively the more fertile the soil becomes. So the Herbal Ley gives us that above and below ground diversity to improve the soils. It also, as I say, gives better resilience. The likes of the chicory and some of the cocksfoot, for example, and some of the clovers, deeper rooting, sainfoin as well, deeper rooting plants that are going to do better when you get into a hot, dry spell. There's more water available in that situation where you've got deeper rooted plants. The Herbal Leys fit into our arable rotation. They're put in on a 4-year basis. We leave them down for 4 years, and then they will be sprayed off and we'll direct drill into them. The first of the Herbal Leys we put in about 5 years ago, and that has come out this summer. We've sprayed it off and planted a summer cover crop into it, which will be grazed in September, and then wheat will be drilled into it in early October. We've done that for a number of different reasons. We want to cycle a few of the nutrients and break down the grass sward a little bit by growing the cover crop, and it also is a way of reducing any allelopathic effect of the grasses on the following wheat crop. It will also give us a bit of a break from grazing the grass in September time, giving us a bit more grass to graze through the winter, because our cows stay out all year round. We don't bring them in the winter, and we graze them on overwintered cover crops through a lot of the winter, but to have a bit more grass to graze through the winter by leaving some shut up in September just improves our options through the winter time. Our arable side of the farm, we've been no-till since 2014, and we grow cover crops in front of all of our spring cropping, and occasionally grow a cover crop in the summertime to give us a different entry into the wheat, and also give us some autumn grazing for the cattle. The no-till system suits this soil type, particularly up on the chalk, which is very forgiving, but it also works well and is helping us to increase our organic matter on the green sand and on the clays. It gives us a little bit more work to do, but when that's spread over the whole year, and take into account the lack of work in the winter compared to housing cattle, and having all the animals mobbed up together means we are only going to one bunch every day, it sort of balances out. It's still a little bit more work, but it's not a lot more work. Putting electric fences up every day, we're pretty well organised for it now, and it doesn't take very long. In about 45 minutes we've picked up the previous day's back fence, put up the next morning's fence, and moved a water trough and checked the cows. So establishing the Herbal Leys, we've tried a few different ways with our no-till system. The best fields have definitely been autumn drilled, we've found. We've had some fairly good success undersowing some spring barley. We found that we had two issues with that. One, the grasses came better than the herbs in that situation, and the other problem we had was the wider row spacings, because we only drilled it in one direction. When we drill in the autumn into a bare stubble, we cross drill at 90 degrees so that we get a better coverage of the sward. When we drilled into the standing spring barley, we just drilled in one direction, so we had a more open sward, which hasn't been quite as effective. It has filled out over time, but not nearly as effective as what we're standing in at the moment. What we're standing in at the moment was drilled in September 2020 behind wheat, and it established relatively well, and by this time last summer it was an absolute pitcher, as it was a couple of hours ago before the cows came in here. A little bit of history about Wexcombe Farm. My great-grandfather bought the farm in 1920. He was the youngest son of 12, a family of 12, to a dairy farmer, tenant dairy farmer in Bradford-on-Avon. He loved his cows, but he'd been an arable farmer for the previous 20 years or so, before he then bought Wexcombe in 1920. He could see the potential for the farm as a dairy farm, but there were no buildings up on the top of the downs here where we are today. And so rather than walking the cows miles back down to the farm, he invented the mobile milking bale, and they moved the cows around the farm here, milking them out in the field. A system that was very successful through the 20s, 30s, 40s and the 50s. He improved the soils through the grazing of the dairy cows, and that carried on. We got out of dairying. My father took the decision to get out of dairying in 1990, and we've run a suckler herd ever since then. But the Herbal Leys add so much in terms of increasing soil organic matter, increasing the soil life, but they also give us a really good break and chance to clean the fields and reduce the burden of blackgrass and other pernicious weeds in our arable system. We've been growing Herbal Leys now for about 5 years, and the first ones are just coming out and going back into the arable rotation. And in that instance, the soil is much more friable than it was when we went in. It was a field that we had a real blackgrass problem with, and touch wood, so far so good. It's a lot cleaner than it was prior to having the Herbal Ley, and the crop looks really well behind it. So we shall see how we get on. We've got another one coming out which we've put into a summer cover crop this year, which that summer cover went in a couple of weeks ago, and it's up and getting away. Hopefully we'll get a nice big stand of different species to our winter cover, which will grow big and give us a good autumn grazing, capture some nitrogen, cycle some nutrients, and give us a really good entry into wheat in the autumn. But we've definitely seen worm numbers increasing over the 4 years of a Herbal Ley, and dung beetles. There's a some dung in front of me, and I can see a few dung beetles running around in that. So we're just seeing a much healthier environment. We've seen an increase in farmland birds since we've been growing the Herbal Leys. We're also seeing a huge increase in the numbers of small mammals, voles and things, which has led to an increase in kestrels and barn owls on the farm. So it's not just about improving the soil health, it's improving everything. The whole life on the farm is better as a result of having more grass in the rotation, the animals moving around, and the diversity that the Herbal Ley brings to the system. So the cattle, we've found, are doing really well on the mob grazing system with the Herbal Leys and the permanent pasture that we still have, and the winter cover crops. We're finishing everything on farm 100% pasture fed. There's no hard feed used on the farm, and we've sent the first few animals this year. They were 24 months old or just under, and the average carcass weight was 345 kilos. we're definitely seeing that, you know, we can finish animals in a timely fashion just on herbal leys, winter cover crops and a bit of permanent pasture. And it's a low cost system. It's a one-man job, and it suits our farm really well. Our standard means of coming out of a herbal ley into the arable rotation has changed a little bit. We used to come out into a break crop and then follow that with a winter wheat. But we've now decided it works better for us to graze the grass quite hard in the winter time, have another grazing early spring, and then we desiccate it with glyphosate in May and put a summer cover crop into it. This helps to break the sward down and reduce any potential allelopathic effect of the dying grasses on a following wheat crop. And it also gets us a cover crop to graze in the autumn and cycle those nutrients that have been captured by the cover crop. We then go in with a winter wheat drilled in late September, early October into that grazed cover crop. We're in a new countryside stewardship agreement, and we've put all of our herbal leys into SW17, the nil fertilizer regime. We haven't needed any fertilizers on our herbal leys since we've been growing them and mob grazing them. It seems that, you know, they do very well without, and so that's an obvious win for us to get paid a little bit for not using the fertilizers. We've also got a field, in fact just over behind you there's a field that has gone into the, I think it's SW7, which is arable reversion, for 5 years. So that's a herbal ley that it's on some very, very poor ground. It probably should never have come out of grass and gone into the arable rotation. And so we're putting that back down to permanent grassland. It's a field that you know, will do well for being in grass for a long period of time now. Going forwards, we're at British agriculture, world agriculture is obviously at a pretty interesting time at the moment. Huge challenges and a lot of we're at a crossroads in my mind of where farming could potentially go, and in my mind the best thing we can do here at Wexcombe is make ourselves as resilient to any changes, be that climate change, economic change, international trade changes, and by improving our soil health and through the cattle finding a route to market that isn't a commodity market. We try and sell to local butchers and a little bit direct to consumers. I think the more produce on the farm that we can produce, that we can shorten that supply chain and get closer to the consumer, the better off we will be and the more resilient we will be going forwards. We've been using Cotswold seeds ever since we decided to grow some Herbal Leys. They've always been very friendly and efficient, and deliveries coming quickly, which is always good when you suddenly decide to change your cropping plans at the last minute and decide that actually that field that was going to go into an autumn arable crop is now going to go into a Herbal Ley because whatever reason has changed your mind, and that has happened once or twice. And I've been really pleased with the vigour of the seeds and the establishment that we've got. So yes, I mean, they've been a great asset to have at the end of the phone line.